The Sangoma hood that we see practiced today is not originally African.
Oh.
I'm gonna say it again. The Sangoma hood that is practiced in today's system is not originally Africans. Africans believed in secret places. So, you know, their practices would be in a particular sacred place. When we talk about sacred places, there you realize there were particular sacred mountains, rivers that were considered to be sacred. You had caves that were considered to be sacred, you know, waterfalls, and all those things were taken to be sacred places where certain spiritual practices would be done in these particular places, you know, not just generally everywhere. Now, the second layer is that we have sacred people. Sacred people, there we're talking about, you know, people called, Kastwana, we call them Dingaka. You know, Dingaka were people who they were not just uniform people, there were categories to these people. You know, for instance, you had different people who were dealing with different things. Let me give you a few categories there. You had Ngaka Peko. That would be your chemist, a person who dealt specifically with medication that brings healing on physical ailments. And then you had Makayadi Taula, that would be your spiritists now, people who were reading the bones. Somehow, for some strange reason, Africans had a strange reverence to death. That is why even when they wanted to predict things, they would actually use bones because they had some special fear for death. In fact, there is somewhere in the Bible where God speaks about people making a covenant with death. That is where they take the notion of Abapansi, if I may put it that way. So there was a special relationship that Africans would have with death in particular. That is why then the ancestral renovation came in into their practices, because somehow they deified death. They kind of like worshipped death. That is why Ngaka Taula would actually deal with bones. This is important. Why? Because all these specialized Dingaka, they would not stay among people. They would stay in designated places. We've already talked about ritualistically connected places like your caves, your mountains. When Ngaka comes into the village, they would find a place for him somewhere far from the village. They were secluded from the community because they had to have a special connection with nature. There is a particular connection with nature that they used to have, that, you know, people within the community would actually cluster that. They believe that they were jamming the network, in a sense, if I may use today's technological terms. They were jamming the network. You could not connect to your ancestors where there was traffic, where there was a lot of things happening. That is very important because it brings me to the topic of Sangoma hood that we see practiced today.